Liberty. It's a great day to be American. It is a great day to be an American. Good morning, Americans, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, good morning to the veterans. On this day, you are our honored guests. Today, we celebrate the veterans of America. On this day, originally called Armistice Day, a day that was known to celebrate the end of World War I when the veterans came home. And then in 1954, President Eisenhower was petitioned and created a proclamation on May 26th that said that November 11th was to be considered Veterans Day. That is what we're here today to honor to you. Before we talked about Memorial Day, those were the veterans that died in service. Today is what we honor is you. Each and every one of you that are serving today, that have served in uniform. A round of applause for our veterans. That's what we are called here to observe today. I have but three things I really want to talk to you about today. I won't keep you long. But three things are things that I really believe in my heart and I feel in my heart. One, that is one of service. Number two is being an American. Number three is being a veteran. That's why we're here today. We're here because we pay honor to men and women that come from all walks of lives. Veterans dealing in all different socioeconomic groups, all different occupations today. That's what we honor them for. That's what we're here today to let you know that veterans are not just the ones that are doing just one thing. They're doing a number of things. I've said before, and I will always say again, veterans are ordinary people that do extraordinary things. Let me frame this in an American story for you. A little kid in his backyard. The mom is on one side of the yard. She's hanging up clothes on a clothesline. We don't do that anymore. We've got fans, we got dryers now. And the girls are on the other side, and they're playing hopscotch. And the dad is over there, and he's fixing brakes on the car. The young man in his little Cub Scout uniform has got a little old tattered sheet on the back of his neck. He's running around in the backyard. He feels that he's a superhero. He thinks he's a knight. That was me, ladies and gentlemen. I looked over to my dad, and my father said, "What are you doing, boy?" Now, this is an American story. I said to him, "Well, I'm a knight." He said, "A knight? You see, my father's name is King David. King David out of the Bible. But I'm an 8-year-old Cub Scout. When I see a king, I think King Arthur, the Round Table, stuff like that." I said, "Well, you're the king. So if you're the king, I've got to be the knight to protect the castle." He looked at me as an 8-year-old Cub Scout. My father said, "Son, there will always be dragons. As long as dragons exist, you must be the good knight to protect the castle." I never forgot those words. That was the first time I heard the words service. Because my father said to me, "You must be of service to the castle." Now, I'm an 8-year-old Cub Scout. I don't know any better. I'm just doing what Dad says. But service always stood with me. And of course, my mother says, "Hey, King, the castle needs the yard cut. So don't forget that." That's what all moms would do. She brought it home. But who are these veterans, as I mentioned, that we serve today, that we talk about their service? As I mentioned, they're ordinary people that do extraordinary things. They're all around us. They're doctors and lawyers, candlestick makers, bricklayers. They do a number of different jobs. Sometimes people are far removed from veterans today. We've all got situations now where a lot of people are not going to service this day because service means something different to them. But here today, we're here to applaud each and every one of you that's taken that charge of that order for service. We thank you. I thank you. It was an inspiration for my life, an inspiration for a number of people and a number of things. I sometimes talk to people at different events, and I mention to them how we see service and we see veterans all over. As you can see the veterans on the corner stores, you've seen them before. You see them at Walgreens out there. They're standing on that corner, and he's got a sign that says, "I served." and we walk right by them. See, I could easily take that time and Google a great war stories and talk to you about these great battles and stuff like that. But here today, I want to keep it local. Keep it local and talk about those veterans that we see, that sometimes we walk right past them. But they served. And they are veterans, just like our war heroes are. That veteran that's on that corner that says, you know what, don't walk right by me. Pay attention to me because I served. I volunteered to local correctional institute at the prison. After doing some mentoring to about 60 other prisoners, one of the gentlemen that was in the Army came up to me and he said, you know what, sir? I spent 20 years in the Army. I was taken aback. And you're here? I guess that's what the Army does, but anyway. I said, you're here? Okay, well, slow down. Right. I know you guys are going to get me for that one later. Anyway, I love you all the same. And I said to him, I said, well, you know, even though you may be in this particular situation you are today, you just still served. And we still account for that. Regardless of the situation that you're in today, you served. And we still always honor that. So we honor that veteran that's on that corner, that veteran that may have a situation that's there, that veteran that has what we call the silent stories that happen at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., where nobody's around to hear that story. But that veteran knows that. You know what happens a lot of times at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m.? Those are those trigger moments. Those veterans that are out there are suffering from what we call PTSD. Who knows what those triggers are? That veteran does. United States of America knows that those things occur. So we also honor them. We honor those veterans that are out there suffering from those silent wounds. Those veterans that are homeless, that are out there somewhere and they don't have a place, but they serve. So we still honor them today. They may not have the salad, as we call it, the huge shadow box, but they serve like each and every one of us. And we always serve all of our veterans. As I said, keeping it local, how we think to ourselves. I think the veterans that have inspired me. I had 3 neighborhood networks, what they call neighborhood network centers. And I met a gentleman there, and he worked with after-school programs for kids. He took the after-school programs, he took the leadership that he had from being a chief petty officer. Some of you know him, his name is Chief Petty Officer Willie Branch, that's right over there. He took the time to work with after-school program with kids at the centers. Next thing I know, he's a pastor for, I guess it was the Ormond Beach, his police department, and then the Daytona Beach. Next thing I know, he's serving at the memorial. And you know why? And when he gave a speech, he was talking one time, he said something about the plight of the homeless veterans. It came out of nowhere for some people, but for me, it did not. I knew he was going to say something, at least something. You know why? Because that's what veterans do. Veterans take the leadership when it's needed. And that chief took the leadership when it was there. Veterans that know that type of leadership are always serving all the time. In the military officers chapter, we have something called never stop. Serving is one of our mottos. I told a friend of mine that I was thinking about taking on another position. And in the conversation, he paused me. And he said, listen, Pierre, if you're going to take that particular job, here's what you need to do. He already had it planned out for me. His name was Colonel Bancroft McKittrick. He spent 26 years in the Marine Corps infantry. And the reason he already knew what needed to be done, because that's what veterans do. We are solution experts. We see a particular situation that happens, and that veteran says, here's what needs to be done to climb that hill. Here's what needs to be done to fly over that water. Here's what needs to be done to defend that nation. Here is the plan. When he started saying, you need to do this to fix this, I just smiled on the inside. I said to myself, that's what veterans do. Colonel Skip Keating, I told him I was thinking about running for office. The first thing he did was call me to take me to lunch. You know how colonels do. There's another colonel, he smiled because he knows he's a colonel. He knows that. So colonels do. They say, here's the situation, Pierre. If you're going to run for office, you need to have this, and this. I didn't take offense. I enjoyed the counsel. You know why? Because that's what veterans do. A situation needs to be fixed to take care of Americans. You need it done, you give it to a veteran. When they say that certain people won't do certain jobs, they won't do stuff, you know what I say? You give it to a veteran. He or she will find a way to get success. That's what we're here to celebrate today. Solution experts all over this room, wearing different uniforms, but ultimately, regardless of the colors that's there, I only see red, white, and blue. And that's what's in this room. They're solutions experts. Down there, you always said the water that's here, the flooding. You've had flooding here in Ormond Beach, right? We've got flooding in Daytona Beach. We got flooding in Port Orange. And flooding over, I go to the city commission meetings. Somebody's always like, flooding. You kidding me? There's water everywhere. You mean to tell me on a peninsula, we don't know that it's going to flood? Hello, is this thing on? I talked to a friend of mine, Captain Bill Waters. He's what they call a Navy CB. Another friend of his, Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor. They're engineers. We're sitting at a luncheon. I said, "Man, you're talking about the flooding." I think he's not listening to me. He's scribbling on one of those napkins. Okay? About 2 minutes later on the napkin, guess what? You need to go to Home Depot and pick up this. You need to elevate a house this high. You need to put a structure this way at this elevation, to the left or to the right. He's got a whole list. You take this napkin out, you flap it out. It's got everything that needs to be done to mitigate flooding in Daytona Beach. What did I say earlier? You want a job done? You give it to a veteran. Because veterans are solutions experts. Part of our creed is the fact that we can do. As the Navy's job says, their motto, the Seabees say, can do. That's what we do. We don't pride ourselves working on what the problems are. We pride ourselves in working on what the solutions are. That's why we honor each and every one of you in this room today. You are solutions experts. You see situations, you say, guess what? Not that I gotta fix it. You say you will fix it. And that's the mark of a veteran. That's what the Seabees did. You hear these big terms that are thrown around today, these new words, diversity and equity and all of that. Anybody ever seen the Knights of the Round Table? That table is round for a reason. Because it has men, women, black, white, Korean, Chinese. Everybody's there at that round table for the common effort. The ultimate round table is the armed services. When you're in the armed services, you don't have time to concentrate on your differences. You've got 5 seconds to get over it, get moving, and get going. You don't have time for that. Your ideas, your concepts has to be said. Guess what? At the end of the day, veterans know what? How to work together. That man can be in charge, that woman can be in charge. We were in Orlando recently at a conference, Florida Council of Chapters, and everybody talked about all these different reasons of why the database wasn't going to work. It was going to be this. It was going to be, you can't do all of this. A lady, a friend of mine, Colonel Kim Ramos, she grabbed the mic. 30 years in the Air Force. Of course, you can grab the mic when you got 30 years. But she grabbed the mic and she stood there in front of a room which was largely, predominantly men. She said, "Stop. Here's what you got to do to fix that problem. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. And then she dropped the mic. The room took a pause. I didn't. I knew she was a colonel. I knew she was an Air Force officer. I knew she was a veteran. And I knew that she did what veterans do. They provide solutions to a situation. That's why America is the America that it is today. Our veterans have always and will always provide solutions to make this country sweet land of liberty and might tis of thee. And I close with this one comment. Staff Sergeant Cicely Thomas, African-American female that has a technology company. Inner city kids, underprivileged kids, would never have been exposed to the level of technology. She saw that they needed science, technology, engineering, and math. She created a program for inner city kids where they literally
could talk to astronauts on the space station. Do you think that these kids would ever have really been exposed to that? Had not we had someone a veteran, that had that type of leadership, that transitionally they could move that over to the fields that they were doing today? I mention these stories, ladies and gentlemen, because I want everybody to understand this, if you understand nothing else. Veterans are individuals that are Americans like anybody else. We are ordinary men and women that do extraordinary things. And when a situation appears, or as my father would say, there's adversity, when that dragon comes out. When dragons exist, as my father says, and dragons will exist, we'll always need veterans. Thank you.